Hello everyone. In this training, we're going to cover test of effectiveness and the work papers and how we do the documentation. So, test of effectiveness is sometimes called TOE, which is verifying that a control is in place and it operates as it was designed over a period of time. So in this training, we cover the control description, the test procedures, what lead sheets look like, and how we maintain our work paper documentation. So what you see on screen is what we call a lead sheet, and it's part of our work papers. So work papers means everything related to how we did testing for a control. And a lead sheet is basically a sheet that summarizes all of the procedures that we've done. And I'm going to go through what each of these captions mean so that you have an overview, and then we'll dive specifically into the control itself. So every lead sheet begins at the top with the client name so that we always know what client it is. It also has the name of the process so that we start to narrow in, and the fiscal year, what year it belongs to, so that year over year we know when we pick up a sheet of paper we know exactly what it's about. And it also has here the work paper reference. WP is work paper. So work paper reference, here's the process and here's the control number. And now it's the test detail sheet. So the process is what you will get directly from before when we mentioned about the RCM. The sub-process is narrowing it down even more. Now it's chart of accounts related to Oracle, who the owner is, what the control ID is. Control ID is the same as control number. And the control description. This again feeds directly from the RCM, the risk control matrix, and you're familiar with that. And then the validation, the test validation approach is basically the test procedures. How are we going to validate this? And we'll write that down. The test method. So the test method is how are you going to test it? You can observe it, which means look at it, inspect it, observe meaning watch someone do it, inspect it meaning look at the paper itself or the contracts, whatever it is that they're doing. You could reperform it, which means take whatever they have, redo the whole procedure, and if you get the same results that the other person does, then you verify that it works. So there's observation, there's reperformance, there's inspection, so this is one of them. And how often is the control frequency? This again comes from the risk control matrix. What is the control in place date? Meaning when was it in place? Some companies are very specific, such as it was in on January 1st. Sometimes it's different quarters. This just helps us know how often or how long has this control been in place so that we can select the right periods to test. An example is if you put a control in place starting April 1st, you can only select samples after April 1st. Anytime from January to March 31st, that control was not in place, so you wouldn't expect to have any samples. The sample period is just when are you sampling? Is it from Q1, Q2, Q3? And in our case, we're saying it's all of fiscal 2016. Population size. How big is our population size? Population size is related to how we will derive the sample. That's what sample deviation is. How do we derive how many samples we will select? So in this case, you'll see here in Q1 and Q2, we said the population size is about, if we annualize it, it's about 300 samples. And because this is a medium risk, the sample size is going to be 12. And then for the entire year, what was the actual sample size? So this is just the method of how we come up with the sample size to test. Next is the sample size. And this is where you'll see it has round 1, round 2, and round 3. And in total, the 3 rounds have to equal 12. So 7, 3, and 2 equals 12. That's what we need. And then the source file. It's very important that we have the source file so that anyone can retrace our steps. So in round 1, we got a soft copy of provided by the GL Consolidations Manager, Hawkeye, and the population and the sample came from the COA, Chart of Accounts Creation, and Chart of Accounts Last Update for Q1. So this tells us exactly how to find it. And then for our samples, we said we selected these specific samples. So that's what source file means, is that we have to tell exactly how did we get the samples we needed and what were they. And then we have down here who did the testing. So in this case, Joey did the testing. What was the date that we performed it? The test of design, was it effective or not? And then test of operating effectiveness, was it effective or not based on our samples? And then here, you'll see here now we actually also have to list what were the samples. In round one, we picked these samples. Here's what the description was. Here's what the change was. Who prepared the change? Who approved the change? Was the approver appropriate? What was the date of approval? Is a change documented? And does the change agree? So this is how we document each of our test steps. And so we have round one, round two, and round three. And at the very end here, we have who's the reviewer for each of the work, what was the review date, and was the testing effective or ineffective. And this is where you'll see from round one, round two, and round three what we have. And then at the end here, there are notes. These are just called general notes that what did we do and how did we conclude that it was or was not an exception. So that's what a lead sheet looks like and all of the components of a lead sheet. And regardless of what test it is, it will have similar components.